school at 300 West, no, sorry, scratch that. 600 West, 300 South. Everything's a grid there, how they do the addresses. So I'm at a 4-way stop, and I'm filling out my daily activity report. This was before we were computerized, so you got to keep track of everything you did back then, you know. And so I'm filling out the slash marks for the tickets I have so far that day, and showing where I'd been, and blah blah blah. And I'm parked right as close to the stop sign as you can get to be legal. You know, you have to be about 30 feet away from it. Well, that's where I'm parked, and the curb's right here, and I'm doing my work, and you know, there's nobody out, there's nobody around, just me. And this lady runs a stop sign right in front of me. And I'm facing north, and I'm just south of the intersection. And I look into her car, and maybe some of you ladies can relate to this, but it looks like the Tasmanian devil going on inside the car. And it's just a bunch of kids. And there's heads and hands and feet and arms and legs just going everywhere, you know, whirly-derby. And this lady is trying to settle them down, looks at herself in the middle of the intersection, looks over at me, and throws her arms up in the air and goes, as if to say, what else could go wrong today? So she immediately pulls over. She doesn't even give me time to turn on my red blue lights. You know, she knows she's had, and I know she didn't mean to run the stop sign. She got so preoccupied with her kids, she ran the stop sign, looked over at me, pulls over. Okay? So I get up there, and what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to write a ticket. That's what I do. And so, as soon as I get up there, she already has her license and registration out the window, just like this. And this lady never says a word. And I mean, if you've had a bad day, times those by 10, and that's what this lady's having. She is not there. She's not worried about her kids anymore. She's not worried about me. She never said one word to me, not one. And she is about to change my life forever. I hope one day I'll be giving this speech and she'll come up to me and I'll hug her and thank her for what she did. But maybe she wasn't the one. Maybe she was just the tool that the good Lord used to hit me over the head with a 2x4. And so I start writing the ticket, and at the end of the ticket, as any of you know, Sheriff, you know, and your major knows, at the end of the ticket, you sign your name and your serial number. I just finished that, and then I paused. And I looked down at this depressed, dejected woman, and she was just staring right past the steering wheel, through the windshield, outside into the wild blue. I looked down at her snotty-nosed kids, who were some of them still fighting, you know, crying and still doing what the kids do. And I looked down at her cruddy old car, and her car and her kids proved to me that she couldn't have afforded this ticket if it was a $5 ticket. I think back then they were like 40 bucks. And I asked myself a couple of questions now. I said, Mack, is there anything you're doing here that's helping this family? I didn't like the answer. You know, maybe a real cop that's a real public servant would have said, ma'am, look, I know you're having a rough day today. Why don't, you know, from now on, when your kids get going like this and you're in a neighborhood like this, why don't you just pull over? And not only that, but the elementary school's right here. Why don't you let them go play and get some of that Tasmanian energy, run out of them, let them play around for 15 or 20 minutes, and then go about where you were going. I think that would be time well spent. You see, that's a true public servant there. And I was here to get statistics, and I was here to get numbers. So that didn't even enter into the conversation or my train of thought. And then I asked myself another question. Is there anything you're doing here that's bringing honor to the badge you wear on your chest? Well, now, I knew the answer to that, and now I'm more depressed than she is. And I hand her back her license and registration, and I kept the ticket, which we're not supposed to do that. I don't know if you guys have a rule against that. But you don't get to just tear up a ticket that you already wrote. You have to be, you're accountable for every ticket. And sometimes your sergeant will go, hey, where's this ticket? You know, what'd you do? And if you want to dismiss a ticket, you can go to the judge and say, hey, would you please dismiss this ticket, blah, blah, blah. After you write it, it's a ticket, you know. But I wasn't really too worried about that. And I broke policy and took the ticket back to the station, tore it up, and put it in the trash can in the briefing room. And the rest of the night, I wondered who I was and why I was a cop and why we have government and what this is all about. Is it just tickets? And who makes the biggest arrest? And who got the burglary felony arrest this week or this month? What are we doing here? And I was determined that I was going to find that answer. And I still went on the calls the rest of the night that I was assigned to, but I didn't write any more tickets that night. And the next day I came back early before briefing. Briefing's at 2:30, this was swing shift, and swing shift patrol started at 3. And I came back early and I was walking around the police station. I'm looking for some of these answers. And I want to know, why am I doing this? And why do we have a police department that does this? And good people around here asking me to do these things to people. And I didn't find any answers. And so I went from the police side over to the city center side. And I'm still walking around, and I ended up walking into the office of the city clerk. And I'm just standing there in uniform and just, you know, and she's going, Sheriff, no, sorry, back then it was Officer Mack. And I said, hi, and she goes, is there anything I can do for you? And I blurted something out that to this day I don't know why I did it, because it was not a topic of conversation in my life anywhere. And I said, when I took this job, did I take an oath of office? She goes, you sure did, you signed it. It's all documented, dated. It's in your 201 file. And before I could ask her for it, she burned me a copy and handed it to me. And I read it. And I'm telling you, I was so ashamed when I read that oath that I was determined right then to quit my job. My chosen profession, my career, my livelihood, I'm quitting. And I'm not kidding you. I'm not turning in a 2 weeks notice. I'm leaving. I'm taking off my badge. I'm taking off my Sam Brown. And I'm going to the chief's office, and I'm going to leave it there. Whether he was there or not, I did not know. And I was going to leave it there and tell him, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do this job anymore. I can't. I'll talk to you later. I'm leaving. And then right before I got into his office, there's a lobby that separates the city side to the police side. And I paused again. Boy, those pauses in my life have been really drastic. And I imagined having this conversation with my wife. You got one of those too, right? I call it the subconscious. And my wife has been that for a long time. So I paused there in the lobby and I'm going, what's this going to be like? I'm going to go home and my wife's going to go crazy on me. And so this is how the conversation went. And remember, this is just going on in my head. And she goes, so you quit your job today? I said, yes. You quit your job because you're a liar and a hypocrite. So, yeah. You took an oath to something that you don't even know anything about, and you didn't even know you took the oath. I said, yeah, that's right. I said, I'm sorry, I'll get another job. I promise, I'll get another job, but it'll be okay. So we can't pay the house payment, we can't pay the car payment. Does that sound like a wife? Yeah. And we can't buy the kids new school clothes, all because you got a little guilty conscience and you're a liar and a hypocrite. That's it. And she goes, could you do something? Could you consider something for me? And I said, sure, anything. Would you consider keeping your job and quit being a liar and a hypocrite?